This is hilarious.
You guys, I can't stay quiet about this. The talk about importing more foreign beef to help lower beef prices, that's not the solution. It's the same failed policy that's already hurt rural communities, shrunk our American cow herd, and handed even more control of our food supply to big corporations. Right now, the 4 big packer companies are already importing beef from like 20 different countries, including Argentina. They're allowed to sell that beef right beside American beef without a label telling you the difference in the grocery stores. Without mandatory country of origin labeling laws, you as a consumer have no way to know where your beef came from. And that's exactly how the packers like it. More imports won't fix the problem. They'll make it worse. Every pound of foreign beef that's brought in weakens our own cattle industry and puts our nation's food security further at risk. If you care about keeping America's food supply strong and supporting American ranch families, the best thing you can do is be buying ranch direct. Obviously, we'd love for that to be from us at Diamond H Ranch. But even if it's not from us, find a rancher you trust and support them. When you buy ranch direct, your money's going directly to a hardworking American ranch family. And that's the future of American beef. So buy direct. And even better, take a minute to call or email your senators and representatives. Tell them to oppose any increase in beef imports from Argentina and to stand up for American ranchers. It really does make a difference. Let's put America's cattle industry first. More imports aren't the answer. You are.
I hope you guys know how interesting things are about to get. Many of us on the left have been warning Trump supporters that Donald Trump is a toxic narcissist, as is much of the administration, and everybody eventually gets burned, and you're going to get burned. And American cattle farmers right now, we are watching a full-blown narcissist attack against cattle farmers. So if you don't know what's going on, Trump has decided that because beef is so expensive because of his tariffs and his deportations, he's going to purchase beef from Argentina. And by flooding the market with more beef, bring the cost.
Well, the government is shut down. Inflation's still rising. Soybean farmers have no place to export to due to Donald Trump's trade war. And Donald Trump just signed a deal to make sure that we buy more beef from Argentina and less from United States cattle ranchers. But I'm sure he has a plan on how he's going to get us out of this.
What do you have to say to U.S. farmers who feel that the deal is benefiting Argentina more than it is them, as they are a top
Argentina's fighting for its life, young lady. You don't know anything about it. They're fighting for their life. Nothing's benefiting Argentina. They're fighting for their life. You understand what that means? They have no money. They have no anything. They're fighting so hard to survive. If I can help them survive in a free world, I happen to like the president of Argentina. I think he's trying to do the best he can. But don't make it sound like they're doing great. They are dying. All right? They're dying.
Send more money to Argentina. Bold move, Cotton. Let's see how this plays out. But hey, I guess sending them money will make sure that they have their universal health care while the Republicans make sure to cut ACA subsidies so our healthcare premiums go up. Not exactly the choice I would have made, but let's see how this plays out.
Down for all of us. And the immediate response of the American cattle farmers, almost overwhelmingly, they probably voted for Donald Trump, are like, what? What are you doing? Why are you doing that? This is hurting us. And here's where it gets interesting. Trump responded exactly like a narcissist. He essentially said, you cattle farmers don't know how good you have it under me, which is gaslighting. And he said, you guys need to lower the price of your beef because you're basically the reason beef is so expensive. Classic narcissism, classic attack. It's classic.
Republicans in Congress are having a beef with President Trump, and it's all to do with cattle. So earlier this week, Trump said on Air Force One that he was considering importing more cattle from Argentina, a movement to both help Argentina and lower beef prices. But of course, this has kicked off a huge concern among American cattle farmers who said that importing would really hurt them. And an issue dealing with farmers is red meat for a lot of Republicans up there, many who are from rural areas. And so we've heard from numerous lawmakers. They've either reached out to Trump via letter or talked to the White House directly, trying to make sure that Trump does not go through with this policy. One of the reasons this is so interesting isn't just the economics, it's the fact that this is a rare split between Republicans on the Hill and President Trump. So far, they've really supported a lot of what his administration has done, but this seems to be an issue that could potentially divide them if the White House decides to go forward with it. We'll be keeping a close eye to see whether Trump dumps this policy and is able to move along, or whether this could become an increasing issue.
I can tell you right now, they are going through something. If anybody's been on the receiving end of that kind of narcissistic blow, it's traumatizing. But I got to tell you this, these Trump supporting cattle farmers are not going to get any sympathy from other MAGA voters. See, this is also where, like, if you're part of a church environment where the pastor is a narcissist and you get burned and you wake up and you start crying to the other parishioners that are still under the narcissist's spell, they turn on you. They're not going to be there to back you. These other MAGA supporters, MAGA voters, are not going to support these cattle farmers when they start turning on Donald Trump. And that's going to be another type of trauma these farmers are going to experience. Now, I, on the left, can behave just like many Trump supporters have behaved to this date and say, too bad, farmers. You asked for it. I don't care. All I care about is the price of beef is going down. Yay, Donald Trump. That's all I care about. I could say that, but I'm not MAGA. This actually hurts me to see all this, having been on the receiving end of narcissistic abuse myself. This is just pay attention, you guys. This is going to be a big awakening for that part of America.
For him. He's saying this as he's actively flooding the U.S. market with cheap imported Argentina beef, undercutting American farmers and driving them into bankruptcy. Even Trump-supporting ranchers say they feel betrayed. Look at this.
I'm very happy about that. We're going to do something very quickly and easily on beef to get it down. The ranchers understand that. They're so happy for what I've done. I saved them. I don't think you'd have any beef in this country if I didn't do that. So we're very proud of that. Yep.
Isn't that just unbelievable? He could not be more delusional if he tried. Trump has the nerve to say he saved U.S. ranchers while his trade policies are actively crippling them. His choice to massively increase beef imports from Argentina has caused U.S. cattle prices to plummet. Independent ranchers, the backbone of rural America, are being squeezed out while multinational meat corporations are profiting off of cheap foreign supply. The irony here is painful. Many of these ranchers supported Trump in both elections, believing his America First lie. But now, even lifelong Republican farmers from places like Texas to Oklahoma to Arkansas are starting to speak out. And rightfully so. He betrayed them. He sold out to foreign producers and lied straight to their faces. And to add insult to injury, he's now on TV saying these ranchers should be thanking him despite the fact they're going bankrupt because of his policies. A billionaire is helping massive corporations and not the American people. How surprising is that?
All right, it's been a crazy week for ranchers in internet land, so let's get into it. Let's talk about Trump's tweet. First of all, nobody should be surprised by this. This is how he rolls. This is how he talks. This is what he does. I'm not surprised. He says a lot of crazy things. I can tell you the reason we have high beef prices is not because of tariffs on Brazil.
Hi, ladies. Hi, ladies.
I'm not an economics major, but this is simple supply and demand Economics 101. The American cattle herd right now is the smallest it has been in over 70 years. But Americans still want high quality American beef. Supply goes down and demand goes up, price increases. We quite literally do not have enough cattle right now to meet demand. The market is also cyclical. There are ups and downs. The last time we had a nice high like this was around 2014. Definitely didn't last as long as that. Farmers and ranchers are selling out at alarming rates. Ranches are disappearing, and it's really sad, honestly. But it also makes sense because it is so expensive. Most years we are lucky to break even. A lot of family members aren't wanting to come back to the ranch. Feed costs are soaring. Input costs are soaring. Developers come in and offer top dollar for land. They want to come in and build 1,000 of the same cookie cutter houses. Generational ranches get divided up amongst family members. And the barrier to entry is astronomical. It's almost impossible to just go buy land and start a ranch. Okay, second thing is We have always imported beef and probably always will. We're not importing like the nice, juicy, tender ribeyes and
President loves our ranchers and he also loves American consumers, and he wants to do right by both. So the immediate solution to the problem of the rising cost of beef, President wants to bring that down, is we have to increase our supply. And so that's what he's doing with respect to these imports.
I hope you're watching. Farmers and ranchers, I hope you're watching because you're being gaslit right out of existence. Hey guys, my name's Will. This is the Back 40, and let's talk about it. Nothing summarizes, nothing epitomizes, nothing represents the gaslighting that's happening to farmers and ranchers in rural America better than the Chinese trade deal that was announced today. Can you imagine a situation in rural America at any job you hold or on any farm and ranch in this country where you could be praised, lifted up, and put on a pedestal for creating a problem, blowing up the entire economy by creating that problem, backing away from your stance that created the problem, and in the end, claiming a victory because you had to back down? That's exactly what just happened today. In rural America, farmers and ranchers, I hope you're watching because all of America is going to pay the price, but you're going to pay a very special price. And the media plays along. Headline after headline today that Trump got his trade deal with
USA CEO Bill Bullard. Bill, welcome thank you for joining us this morning. So let's start with this. How many beef, cow, calf farms and ranches are we losing to bankruptcy every month?
Well, we've lost over half of all the cattle operations that were in business just over a generation ago in 1980 are gone today. And in the 5-year period from 2017 to 2022, we've lost another 100.
They say that importing more beef keeps prices low for the consumers, but that's just not the truth. Since 2017, beef imports have gone up about 43%, and the price of beef at the grocery store has gone up 42%. So who's really winning here? It's not the ranchers, it's not the consumers, it's the global meat packers who are profiting. More imports don't mean cheaper groceries, they mean fewer American ranchers, more empty main streets, and less control over our own food supply. It's time to put American cattle industry first again. All we're asking for is a fair market and a label that tells the truth. Product of USA should mean born, raised, and processed in the United States of America.
Let's do a little economics lesson. When cattle numbers are low, beef prices are going to be high. The U.S. herd is the smallest it's been in decades. Drought and high feed costs force ranchers to downsize. Drought means less grass, more expensive feed, and higher production costs. Restrictions and tariffs are cutting into supply and raising costs. Labor, fuel, and packaging are all more expensive. You can't grow a herd overnight. It takes years to recover cattle numbers. This is the first time in about 20 years that cattle producers are actually doing pretty well and are in the green in the market right now. Having 50% tariffs on Brazil is not really what's helping us. What's truly helping us is our beef in the United States is the safest and healthiest product that you can find in the world. And guess what? Consumers are still buying our product despite the high beef prices right now, because it's safe and they trust us. Now, I don't have a crystal ball, but we will see what happens when we have extra beef coming in from different countries like Argentina or Brazil. But something tells me that the consumer is behind the American rancher. Let me know what you think.
It's so expensive. Most years we are lucky to break even. A lot of family members aren't wanting to come back to the ranch. Feed costs are soaring. Input costs are soaring. Developers come in and offer top dollar for land. They want to come in and build 1,000 of the same cookie cutter houses. Generational ranches get divided up amongst family members. And the barrier to entry is astronomical. It's almost impossible to just go buy land and start a ranch. Okay, second thing is we have always imported beef and probably always will. We're not importing like the nice, juicy, tender ribeyes and fillets that Americans want. We are importing a lot of lean trim and ground beef to meet the ground beef demand. We've always done that. That's not a new thing. Would like to see less emphasis on that and more emphasis on the American rancher. So as far as short-term solutions, I really don't think there are any, because that is not how ranching works. This is generational work. Cattle industry is so unique and so segmented. It is not like poultry or anything like that. You could incubate an egg in 21 days and have a chick and have some eggs a few months later. These are our heifers. Some were born this year, some were born last year. We won't get a calf off of these for about 1 to 2 years. That calf has to grow for about 1 to 2 years. We won't make any money off of these for several years, and there won't be any beef from these females for several years. So as for these girls, these are part of our breeding stock. So they will actually stay here their whole lives till they're about 10, 11, 12 years old, however long they can keep being bred and be healthy, happy, and safe until they go into the food supply chain. So that's what I mean when I say this takes time. This is generational work. You could have a calf today, and bare minimum, you probably won't get beef off of that animal, high quality beef, for about 2 years. We're trying to.
So first, Trump cost us a $12.8 billion trade relationship with China for soybeans, which Argentina inherited. Then he bails Argentina out with $20 billion. So if you didn't know, that's $32.8 billion that Donald Trump has cost the American people. And now Donald Trump is encouraging American markets to import beef in an attempt to combat rising beef prices in the United States, furthering the betrayal against the American farmer and the American rancher, who he seemingly hates at this point because every detrimental decision he has made has been directed at them, regardless of the fact that they are the backbone of our country. So MAGA, this is the part where you have to come to terms with reality. You put a billionaire in charge, somebody that we warned you about that does not care about American interest or the American economy, but rather cares more about self-preservation and making his friends rich.
Regrow the American cattle herd, it's going to take a lot of time. As for long-term solutions, I'm generally very pro small government. If you go read Thomas Jefferson, America was founded as a self-sufficient agrarian society, free from dependency, corruption. That's what we believe in. That being said, I do think there's an opportunity for the government to help people stay in ranching, get into ranching, and help us be profitable. I don't have all the answers. It's definitely some things worth talking about, maybe things like land grants, maybe some subsidies, things like that to actually help ranchers make money and stay in business so that we're not losing ranchers and family members to 9-to-5 corporate jobs. Being said, we do not need the government coming in and telling us how to do our jobs. America raises the best high quality beef in the world, truly, hands down. No one does beef like the US. Our product is in demand. No one finishes cattle like we do, have the production practices like we do, and the sustainability that we do. I can guarantee you, people in DC do not know the difference between a heifer, a cow, a bull, and a steer. So we don't need cabinet members, politicians coming in telling us how to take care of our animals and our land. That is what ranchers do best. Cowboys are the original conservationists. And I can tell you, because I'm a first generation rancher, we live, breathe, eat this all day long. We're outside of the industry. It is very confusing. I had so much to learn when I first started doing this. The general public doesn't really understand what a cow-calf operation is, what a stalker is. We know how to do our job better than anybody. I don't have all the answers. We're just out here trying to do the best we can. We are enjoying high beef prices. Actually get to make a little bit of a profit for once, so a lot of people are able to get ahead on loans and things like that, which I think is helpful to the American rancher. Just out here doing the best we can and trying to raise the stakes.
Hey friends, today we need to talk about beef. And no, I don't mean drama between creators. I mean the kind that you find at the meat counter in the grocery store. For full transparency, I'm going to be referencing this PBS NewsHour interview, and I do recommend that you go read and or listen to the full thing, but for the purposes of this discussion, I'm going to be referencing some specific parts. The first thing that I want to address is this response from Donald Trump that he gave during a press briefing when he was asked if he had anything to say about how U.S. beef farmers are understandably upset about the deal that was recently struck to bring in more beef from Argentina. His response is as follows. Look, Argentina is fighting for its life, young lady. You don't know anything about it. They're fighting for their life. Nothing's benefiting Argentina. They're fighting for their life. You understand what that means? They have no money. They have no anything. So basically, he said a whole lot of nothing other than kind of deflecting and ignoring the fact that beef farmers are upset with this deal.
So we know now, the farmers of America who have really felt the brunt of these tariffs, which has preventing them from selling their product, especially the soybean farmers and corn farmers here in America, which have really brought the price down to where these people are going to lose tons of money. Well, now the administration, with announcing that they're going to buy beef from Argentina, so it will lower the cost of beef in America. Now, here's the problem with that. Who is it going to affect the most right now? Now, we know the price of beef is high, but there's also not a big supply, and that's how that works in economics. So these ranchers across America who raise beef for their living, they're getting ready to take a tumble, because when they bring in cheap beef from Argentina, because it's going to be subsidized by the government. And you also need to remember there's a lot of disease that was found in Argentinian beef before, with hoof and mouth disease. So American ranchers are up in arms knowing that the taxes that they paid are now going to a country.
At the end of the day, what the current administration is doing by bringing in beef from Argentina to essentially bail them out is screwing over ranchers here in the United States and also potentially introducing serious health and safety risks to the population as a whole. From what I can see through my little bit of browsing online is that the ranchers who largely supported Trump in the election are starting to question their support. But if the administration does succeed in removing Endangered Species Act protections from wolves, I presume that they'll give their support back to the Orange Man. Because, like I said before, this conflict between wolves and ranchers goes back generations. But if the protections are removed and we do lose our less than stable wolf populations, then there's going to be a negative cascade through all of the ecosystems where wolves do have a foothold. So this is essentially a situation where ranchers are being screwed over, and if they get the one thing that they want, then the environment is going to be screwed over. And it is my opinion that we should be advocating for more non-lethal options like livestock guardian dogs and things like that.
Cattle ranchers are saying they actually feel betrayed by the president. And here's why. They've got a shrinking cattle supply, and that means that meat prices have been soaring across the country. And to get prices down, the president wants to buy lower-priced beef from Argentina. And he's already announced a $20 billion currency swap to boost Argentina's struggling economy.
The only price we have that's high is beef, and we'll get that down. And one of the things we're thinking about doing is beef from Argentina.
But my question is, what do you have to say to U.S. farmers who feel that the deal is benefiting Argentina more than it is them, they are a
Argentina's fighting for its life, young lady. You don't know anything about it.
Cattle ranchers are worried that the president's plan could bankrupt them. The head of the Cattlemen's Association says a deal of this magnitude with Argentina would undercut the very foundation of our cattle industry. So I want to talk about this with Scott Thompson, a cattle rancher from Nebraska. Good morning, Scott. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning.
So I don't know if you heard there what the president had to say to that reporter, where he's like, look, you don't know what you're talking about. I mean, what do you hear in his message to people in your community?
You know, I support a lot of his policies, but I think he missed the mark big time here. I think we need to rebuild the domestic beef production herd, whereas we don't have to rely on imports. We produce the safest, highest quality of beef right here in this country. And that takes variables out of the equation, like a screwworm or something like you would have in some of these other parts of the world. It's the safest, most ethical quality product we can buy, and we have the capacity here to raise all the beef we need.
Mr. President, with all due respect, I admire your commitment to aid consumers in the affordability of their food at the grocery store when it comes to beef prices. However, your proposed plan is not going to fix the problem, but I can tell you what will help. I want everyone to be able to afford the products that we work so hard to produce. But Mr. President, you see the reason so many American cattle ranchers are upset with your plan to import, quite frankly, inferior beef from Argentina in order to fix cattle prices is because the prices that we are seeing for our goods finally reflect the value of them. You see, we do not set the prices for our products. We simply take the prices that we are given. And the prices that we are given have not changed in decades. And that is the same across the board for most agriculture products. You know what has changed in the past couple of decades? Our input costs, our cost of production. And so the prices that we are given for our products are wholeheartedly incapable of keeping up with both inflation and our increased cost of production. It is really difficult to make a profit in the agriculture industry. Oftentimes, we just hope to break even. And there are a lot of people who, for several years now, have been losing money in order to make food for people. These prices gave hope to this industry for a prosperous and viable future. It gave a prayer to those trying to enter this industry, such as myself, and it gave a prayer to those who are already established in the industry that they can continue to stay in business and that their business will be strong enough to pass on to the next generation. And every sector in the agriculture industry needs these types of prices and deserves this type of hope for a prosperous and viable future. What we want is a free and fair market for our products. But the fact of the matter is we haven't had a free nor fair market in quite some time. And Mr. President, here is where you can make an immense positive change. You see, we have a little problem called the Big Four. You see, these four companies control roughly 80% of the meat processing and packing here in the United States. They work and collude with each other to fix prices for both producers and consumers to ensure that they get the better end of the deal on both sides. And did I mention that many of these companies are actually foreign owned? So when they screw over the American people, the money that they pocket does not stay here in the United States. It goes to other countries. Dismantle the power that these foreign countries have over our food system. It will increase the prices for producers so we are able to make a living and decrease the prices for the consumers so they're able to buy our products. And support the production of more processing plants so we truly have a free and fair market. Mr. President, this is what's going to have positive, long-term impacts for America and the world as a whole. Thank you.
Okay, so last class, we talked about President Trump's little interview that he did that was obviously off the cuff, where he had mentioned that he was possibly going to import beef from Argentina. That had a pretty big impact on the market. It dropped cattle futures. We talked a little bit about what we can do as agriculture advocates and as college students who are studying regulation and policy, what we can do to solve some of the misinformation going on there. So then the weekend passes, and yesterday, after the USDA was supposed to have their announcement of what their beef market cattle plan for the U.S. beef industry was going to look like, President Trump posted this on Truth Social. So it says, cattle ranchers who I love don't understand that the only reason they're doing so well for the first time in decades is because I put tariffs on cattle coming into the United States, including a 50% tariff on Brazil. If it weren't for me, they would be doing just as they've done for the past 20 years. Terrible. It would be nice if they would understand that, but they also have to get their prices down because the consumer is a very big factor in my thinking also. Okay, so let's start by breaking this down. Okay, first, as agriculture, what are kind of the biggest problems that we see in this post? So what do we do? Okay, the cattle futures have dropped even more since yesterday. President Trump is in a very tough political position because he has basically caused a mutiny among an industry that has generally been very, very pro-Trump. So what can we as agriculture do to try to help mend that relationship back to where it was before?
President loves our ranchers, and our ranchers love our president. And in fact, the president did a lot for them in his first term here. They are struggling because of the many horrible policies of the previous administration. President loves our ranchers, and he also loves American consumers, and he wants to do right by both. So the immediate solution to the problem of the rising cost of beef, president wants to bring that down, is we have to increase our supply. And so that's what he's doing with respect to these imports.
Sexy back. People like myself have been shouting since Trump's first administration that tariffs and trade wars just jack up the prices here on us at home. Meanwhile, he and his gullible voters seem to think that tariffs are the magical answer for everything. In fact, the tariffs in his first administration put such a strain on farmers that he had to bail them out for billions of dollars. Now they're saying they need to be bailed out for even more. And Trump said he would love to do that, but he can't because it's on delay because of the shutdown. The shutdown that he and the Republicans caused by trying to take away health care from people, which the Democrats have said is a red line. With the plan that Trump and the Republicans are trying to implement, people's healthcare costs are going to fucking skyrocket. But now Trump is also not just screwing over soybean farmers, he's now screwing over the beef farmers. Remember when everyone on the right was so pissed off because Fox News told you that Joe Biden was coming for your gas stoves and your burgers? Well, because of these tariffs, the price on beef has gone up about 20% because manufacturers are now boosting up their prices because of the tariffs. And Trump's answer is to say fuck the American beef farmers and just start importing more beef from Argentina. And all of these Trump-humping farmers are now like, wait a minute, aren't we making America great again? No, you're making Argentina great again. Because you're all fucking gullible morons. Meanwhile, Robert Reich pointed out that the people who donated for Trump's expensive ballroom are people like Google and Palantir, people who directly have profited or will profit off of Trump's bullshit. Once again, for the people in the Maga who claimed for years that they cared so much about insider trading going on in Congress, they don't care.
You know, in the same way that it disgusts me seeing people celebrate people losing their SNAP benefits, especially right before the holidays, it also brings me absolutely no joy to see cattle ranchers and farmers in their FAFO moment. We are literally cutting off our noses to spite our faces. Sorry, I have a cold going on right now. But as this holiday season approaches, shit is going to get harder, you know. People who haven't received SNAP benefits probably will not receive their December ones either if this keeps going on. It's going to cause a food crisis as well. We have another crisis going on with the Argentinian beef situation where they're going to flood the market and U.S. ranchers are going to lose their ranches and their farms. And let's be for real, it's a land grab, right? I don't care at this point how they voted. It's a two-pronged problem. And if we could just come together as Americans, there is a solution that could work for all of us. I think this could be a great opportunity for maybe ranchers, farmers, their butcheries to set up systems where we could buy direct. The American people can start buying direct.
What happened to beef prices? How do we bring them down?
We have had a massive run on beef over the last decade. We've had almost 17% of our producers close, which is about our ranchers, which is about 150,000 ranchers have now stopped ranching. It's a whole other show. We need to describe that. But basically, there's been a massive consolidation, which has not been good for our ranching industry. We have, offshored a lot of that to some companies in Brazil and some other internationally. China owns some other companies. There's a really important realignment that has to happen for us to begin to onshore. We talk about onshoring and reshoring for manufacturing. We need to onshore and reshore for our beef producers, for our ranchers. So the prices are high. The president is very focused on fulfilling his promise of bringing grocery prices down, but he's also very focused, and you'll hear more from us perhaps in the next day or two, on what we are going to do to incentivize, to open up new lands, to make it easier to become a rancher, to build more processing plants around the country so there aren't just a handful in the middle of the country. We've got a pretty big package coming out. I haven't talked about it publicly. This is the first time, but that'll be coming out very, very soon. Again, perhaps this week. And we'll be able to begin to move the onshoring of beef back to America. And of course, as you know, the bigger supply, even aligned with a bigger demand, is going to allow those prices to come down, but also to have a vital industry for these ranchers to be able to survive in, which is what we've got to do.
And forego the grocery stores. And then we don't feed into the system of big food anymore either. Plus, you're getting fresher products, antibiotic free. There's a whole lot of benefits to it. Plus, you're building community. At this point, we're going to need one another. Okay. People are going to start losing Medicaid, Medicare, a host of things that they're going to need to rely on to just simply live. If we don't start small and get over this left-right divide, we're all going down together. So the next time, before you start posting about how you're so happy to see SNAP go away, and or that you're so happy to see uh, ranchers and farmers to get exactly what they voted for, understand we're just pawns in a bigger game. Okay. It's going to affect all of us, but there are workarounds and solutions for it. We just need to get past the constant bullshit between left, right, who did what, who deserves what, who doesn't. That's all water under the bridge at this point, because it'll affect us all across the board. Okay. And I just feel like there are answers if you're willing to let go of your emotions and be rational about it. Okay. Because we're all in this for survival at this point. We all have to survive. We all have to put food on the table for our families. But with that being said, reach out to your local cattle ranchers. If you see a post, ask them where they're located. Okay. And see if they're able, through their butcheries, where you could buy direct from them. Farmers markets, ton of that stuff. I'm in a city, so it's a little bit more complicated for me. But I've reached out to a ton of ranchers, told them, don't care who you voted for. How can I buy U.S. beef? Makes no sense. You have beef here? All right. Why do I have to go buy it marked up when it's coming from Argentina? It just makes sense. Okay. And then, a lot of them have steered me in the correct direction, pun intended. But I'm hoping if we can make this a larger movement within our communities, or, nationally, as Americans, if we can make this simple problem solution, okay, jump, we're going to cut out large corporations out of the deal who screw us all. We're not going to have to rely on the federal government who screw us all. Plus, we're building community. I mean, I really don't see what's wrong with that. Just stop holding grudges at this point. It's not about that.
This man is driving us into a ditch we won't be able to escape. American cattle ranchers felt betrayal this week when Donald Trump revealed his plan to import Argentinian beef to lower consumer prices rather than investing in domestic agriculture. To add insult to injury, he then took to Truth Social to critique cattle ranchers and claim he was the only reason for their success. Many believe this is just part of the US's attempt to sway the Argentinian election and that cattle ranchers are not thriving like Trump said. What we really need is to make mandatory country labeling front and center and invest in the American food system rather than artificially cutting prices through imports. Regardless of your politics, recognize this move was turning his back on a population that's been nothing but loyal to him. Support your local American cattle ranchers.
They keep saying we've got the smallest cattle herd in 70 years. Sounds like a crisis, right? Well, that headline leaves out a lot of truth. According to the USDA, the U.S. cattle herd sits around 86.7 million head, the lowest since 1951. But here's what they don't tell you. That's only 1% lower than last year. And cattle today are bigger, heavier, and more efficient than they were 70 years ago. We're producing nearly the same amount of beef with fewer animals. So fewer cows doesn't mean less beef. It means better genetics, better feed, and better management. And yes, sale barn prices are higher right now. That's part true. But that doesn't mean there's a national shortage of cattle. It means supplies a little tighter, and the packers, who control over 80% of all U.S. processing, are fighting harder for finished animals. They use that tight supply as an excuse to push a shortage story that inflates retail prices. And here's how that system really works. The big four, Tyson, JBS, Cargill, and National Beef, control nearly every bottleneck between the ranch and your grocery store. When they slow down kill speeds even slightly, the weekly slaughter numbers drop, and suddenly it looks like there's a beef shortage. Then they tell retailers and the media that supply's low, which justifies raising grocery prices. Meanwhile, they're still exporting huge volumes of beef overseas. So the shortage isn't about production, it's about where the beef goes and who controls it. While consumers pay more, ranchers get squeezed with smaller live cattle margins. Here's another part they never mention. The USDA only counts federally inspected, large-scale operations. They don't include state-inspected plants, custom processors, or direct-to-consumer ranches like ours. That's millions of cattle completely missing from their reports. And every year, more ranchers are leaving the packer system and going decentralized, farm-to-table, local, regenerative. That's why the packers are seeing fewer cattle, because more of us are finally selling direct, keeping that value in our own communities. So no, America didn't run out of cows. We just started taking control back from the corporations that did. The shortage isn't in cattle, it's in honesty. So follow for more real rancher truth and not packer propaganda.
So I'm in Argentina, in cattle country, a couple hours outside Buenos Aires. I'm at a small ranch, which is actually a breeding operation. They help other bigger ranches improve the genetic stock of their cattle. And I interviewed the owner of this operation, whose name is Martin Vivanco, and he said that he's thrilled about the idea of the U.S. dramatically increasing imports of Argentinian beef, which is something Donald Trump has said he wants to do. Martin said that that would be really good for business and that Argentinian beef producers have for a long time aspired to a bigger share of the American market. He also said something else interesting, which is that the beef that's produced here that goes back to the States is not generally mass market stuff that winds up on supermarket shelves. It's really high quality cuts that go to restaurants and caterers, hotels, high-end buyers. And that's because the beef here is just really high quality. It's all like this, like what you see behind me, free-range, grass-fed. The conditions here are perfect for raising really high-quality cattle. So it's not likely that these increased exports from here to the U.S. are actually going to really help the American consumer that much. They'll definitely help Argentinian cattle ranchers and exporters. On the other hand, U.S. cattle ranchers are very much not happy about this idea. And my colleague, Rosa Flores, has been talking to some of them in Nebraska.
I'm Rosa Flores in Hershey, Nebraska. I spoke with 5 cattle ranchers in this area. They're all Republican. They all support President Donald Trump, and they say that they support a lot of his policies. They believe in America first, but they say that they don't agree with the president on everything. In fact, if I were to summarize all the conversations I had into one message from these cattle ranchers, I would say that they believe that the federal government should stay out of their business. They believe in free enterprise.
I agree with him on a lot of his issues, but on this issue, I would disagree with trying to, obviously do anything to lower the price of beef to the beef producers. On the other side of it, you would like to see, a cheaper food supply for the consumer, but not necessarily at the expense of the producer.
So in essence, President Trump don't interfere in the market?
Well, we don't. We appreciate all he does, but being in the market is probably not something we're very anxious to have the government in.
Some Republican lawmakers use the words strongly concerned to describe this move by the president. There's a rancher in Wyoming who used the word betrayed. The ranchers that I talked to here in Nebraska say that's too strong of a word. They say they would use disagreement. They say they don't have beef with the president. They just disagree with him on this.
The U.S. beef herd is at an all-time low and beef prices have never been higher. The American rancher is actually getting more for their cows now than ever before, but this is the issue. The big four packers long-term are not going to want to keep these prices high. So they're going to do everything in their power to start to get these prices to come back down. So they're going to start importing more and more foreign beef at a cheaper price. This is going to depress the market for U.S. ranchers, and we're going to be back where we were, if not even in a worse place. Although beef in the grocery store will still be labeled a product of the U.S., because under our current labeling laws, they can import this farm beef, process it in the U.S., and label it as a product of the U.S. And the American consumer will never even know.
Well, first and foremost, we're not supportive of what the president is pitching.
And one of the things we're thinking about doing is beef from Argentina.
And we're extremely disappointed in the comments that he did make. We're hearing from producers who voted for President Trump and now basically are feeling attacked by the very guy they voted for. And there is that sense of betrayal out there. And I think the president needs to understand that. And we've made that very clear in the conversations we've had, that this is not just about the marketplace, but it is about the overall reputation of the administration, because he has not taken the time to sit down and really understand how beef pricing works, the economics of this industry. And we made it very clear we're willing to sit down and have that conversation with him. But as you have mentioned, this is not just about how prices will react in the future. It's about how we have already been hit as an industry, whether it's the president, whether it's the Secretary of Agriculture. I don't think there's an awareness that even the most innocuous of a comment, even if it's just a passing comment, can have significant ramifications on the cattle markets. We've also had longstanding concerns regarding foreign animal diseases and what's really going on the ground in Argentina. Foot and mouth disease virus can travel on fresh and frozen product. We're asking members of Congress that are friends of ours to also call the president or text the president and let him understand what he's done to hurt us as cattle producers.
The money is not for the Argentinian people. The money is for the business in Argentina and pretty soon other countries. It's not American first. It is money first. It is cheaper to buy Argentinian beef than paying fair prices to the ranchers in the U.S. That never touched my skin. Keep buying local. Keep buying from farmers. Support your local farmers. Support your people. But that's only one step. We need to act now. Rallies, protests don't work. That's one of the biggest reasons we never assist to those events. You know what it works? When you take action. When you are 100% aware of what's happening out there. And instead of falling for the marketing, you fall for what's right. Very simple. Take action. Buy from locals. Buy from small businesses. Buy from farmers. We have the last word. Turned it upside down. Have a good day, people.
Thank you for watching Great Minds Blacks.